If God has your wallet, he has your heart. Mum and Dad, aka Dave and Sue Whisker, aka my parents. Now, I didn't write anything on this list with the intention of making a video. I didn't write them in any order. I just wrote these things over the years as people said them to me, because I knew once I heard them, it would be useful for me to be able to go back to that and remember it, and remember the feeling that I had when the person told it me in the first place. And this piece of advice is probably the first one that I was given out of everything on the list. I was only a teenager when Mum told me this one, and she didn't tell it me because I was money obsessed. She didn't tell it me for any sort of reasons like that. I believe she told it to me because it was something she'd applied to her life, and my parents' life, they've applied it with them. That, you know, the long and short of it is that money doesn't define who you are, and that's not the real deep thing on this, but it's all to do with how we relate to God, what becomes precious to us, what we can hand over to him, and how surrendered we are to God. If I would liken this piece of advice to any story in the Bible, I'd have to choose one of my all-time favorites, which is the story of Mary of Bethany coming to Jesus while hosting him for dinner, and taking the jar of oil, of perfume, and smashing it on the floor at his feet, and washing his feet with this, you know, incredibly expensive, the Bible says it's worth a year's wages, smashing it at his feet and just lavishly doing something extravagant for Jesus. And this was met with disdain from the people around her. Like, the other disciples didn't understand it, her siblings probably didn't understand it, no one understood it, but she knew that she had to do this. I would say Mary of Bethany, if she'd been alive, you know, 2,000 years later, could have gone to my mum and said, if God has your wallet, he has your heart. Because she knew that this expensive worldly thing wasn't more important than laying it down for the sake of Jesus. And this has really been a piece of advice that's defined so much of what my 20s has looked like in some ways. And that's not to try and sound spiritual or show off or anything, but I know that I have to, this always happens, by the way, there's always a helicopter when I come and do one of these videos. I know that this piece of advice is something that helps me work out whether my heart's in the right place with God. If I'm getting stressed, and if things are going badly for me and I'm becoming short and things like that, I often ask myself that question. Is it money that's freaking me out? Is it the fact that I don't think I'm going to earn enough this month? Is it the fact that I don't think I'm going to get my way in this friendship? Is it that I don't think this opportunity is going to come my way? And I have to come back to this thing and say, if I'm holding on to these things that the world has given me, you know, money, power, opportunity, friendship, blah, 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 and I hold that above God, then I'm not really being a worshipper of God. I'm being like everyone else. But if I can be someone who can recklessly lay down the things that the world has put in my hand, which is money, power, blah, 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 then I'm acting like a Christian, aka a little Christ, a Jesus follower. And I believe that's what Mary did. She took something that was rightfully hers and she laid it down at the feet of Jesus. And I want my life to look like that. I want to take what's been given to me, what's precious to me, and I want to lay it at the feet of Jesus, knowing that he is a sound, safe investment. Knowing that I might not get more money for the sake of it, but knowing that I'm buying oil in the kingdom of God, knowing that I'm buying good things, you know, in a kingdom that's unshakable and that will never be taken away. If God has your wallet, he has your heart. I just come back to this one so much, and there have been times where I know I've been holding on to things, and I know in those moments when I'm feeling tight with money, when I'm feeling tight with and insecure, that's a season for me to be more generous than ever before. That's a time for me to be more reckless in my giving, more reckless in my loving, more reckless in the things that I know Jesus wants me to do and that he does in my life. So this is the first one written down on my list. It's the one I come back to the most. It's the one I wanted to record last. I wanted to record it in London. I wanted to record it in my home, because this is one that's stayed with me and will stay with me forever. I mean, all of them will, but this is one that I really come to time and time again. And the last thing I would say in this video, without making it go on too long, is that not everyone on this list is someone who I've had a chance to watch their lives, you know, all the way through. There are a lot of people that I know and love. There are some people who I just met very, very briefly. But my parents are the people I've known the longest in life. And this piece of advice really would mean nothing to me if I hadn't seen it lived out in their lives if I hadn't seen it, you know, take hold of them and define who they are. The reason this piece of advice is so special is because I live underneath their example of how they've done this. I got a B in maths at school. I'm not that good at maths, I was all right. But I can tell you, as someone who is all right at maths, that the maths of my parents' life doesn't add up. The money that they earn does not equate to the lifestyle that they live. So they're either into fraud and like money laundering, which I don't think they are, or God has taken their finances, which they've laid down to him, and he said, it doesn't matter what numbers you bring in, I'm going to give you what I want to give you. And I've seen that with my own eyes. I've seen it firsthand, and it's the example that's led me to be able to live a life that says I'm not going to pursue a career, I'm not going to pursue this, that, or blah blah blah. I want to lay it down for Jesus. And a plane now, not a helicopter. My life would have been 10 times harder if my parents had set that example for me and championed me in some of the decisions I've been able to make as a teenager. And I know Paige's parents have done the same thing, and they've released that into her life, and she wouldn't be the person she is without that either. So this one is so important because it's something that I know I want to take, and I want to champion it for either my children one day or the people that I disciple at the moment and the people who look to me for whatever reasons in life. So I'm going to keep hold of this one. And I guess the last Bible story to define this too, so I really don't want to make this go too long, and it is going long, is the story of, the last story we see of King David's life. I can't remember if it's the end of Chronicles or if it's the end of Samuel, but there's a story where King David comes and he wants to count all the troops of Israel. He wants to count all the soldiers. He wants to see how much he has. And the people who work for him say, "Master, why would you do such a sinful thing?" And as he counts them all, God decides to punish him, and he has to choose one of 3 bad options. It's one of those kind of funny sounding stories that you don't want to read in the Bible. And it used to confuse me as a kid as to why it was so wrong for David to count what he had. And then it came alive to me at one point when I realized David wasn't supposed to know how powerful he was. He wasn't supposed to know how much he had. He wasn't to make his decisions based on the number of troops in his army or the number of resources in his country. He was supposed to make his decisions based on obedience to God, based on where the Spirit of God led him, and based on doing the right thing regardless of the number. I don't have troops, I don't have resources, I don't have soldiers, but I got this wallet which has got a cool button on it that you can press and the cards pop up. And it has money inside it. I have a bank account that has money inside of it. But I don't ever want to make a decision in life based on how much money is in my account. I don't want to say yes because I can afford to say yes. I don't want to say no because I can't afford to say no, or vice versa. I want to say yes and no based on the goodness of God, based on obedience to him, and based on what he tells me is right. And that's why I never check my bank account, really, because I don't want to be like David. I don't want to know how powerful I am. I don't want to know how set up I am. I want to know what he's saying. I want to say yes or no regardless of that. And if I'm making decisions based on my money, then I need to give God my wallet, because if I give God my wallet, then I know he's truly got my heart in that moment. So thank you, Mum and Dad, not just for this piece of advice, but for everything, of course, and to Tommy and Lana as well for also showing this in my life. And thank you everyone who's been able to watch any of these videos, regardless of how many people watch it or what kind of impact it's had. It's been a blessing to me to be able to get these out into the open and to have something even I can watch back and let these pieces of advice come to life. But thank you for the kind words people have given, for the people who have watched it. Love you all. Gonna try and come up with another YouTube series. Feel free to text me any ideas, but I've enjoyed this. Love you all. Bye.